Byzantine artists are famous for their metal and ivory work. The Barberini ivory is an ivory leaf from an imperial diptych dating from late antiquity, now in the Louvre in Paris. It represents an emperor as a triumphant victor, and ivories of this size are very rare. So we see an emperor on horseback in the central panel with 4 panels on the 4 sides, one of which is lost. Starting at the top, we have Christ in a medallion at the center with angels on either side. He makes a gesture of blessing, and around him we see a symbol of the sun, the moon, and a star. He's holding a scepter with a cross and looks directly out at us. And you can see that he's been rendered not with a traditional long, thin face with a beard, but he's young. He's beardless and his hair is curly, which is very reminiscent of the classical tradition. The 2 angels on either side are also very reminiscent of Nike figures, these figures of victory that we'd often see in ancient Roman carving. Although the drapery has been simplified and instead we are seeing cuts rather than fully formed folds. So we have this very static image of divinity, and then below a very dynamic and energetic image of the emperor riding on a horse toward us, an emperor who is a Christian. And we can see him holding the reins as he turns the horse, planting his lance down on the ground. And look at the round forms on the horse's breasts. These would have involved inlay of semi-precious stones and colored glass. And art historians believe that the fineness of this carving indicates that this was made in a workshop in Constantinople. And we don't know who the imperial figure is. In fact, we're really just guessing that it is an imperial figure. But all the iconography tells us it is a royal imperial person. We have a Nike figure, this figure of victory, presenting the emperor with a palm branch, also a symbol of victory. We also guess that in her right hand, she would have originally been holding a crown to place on his head. As in so many other images of Roman emperors, nearby the figure, there is always a vanquished foe. And so look how much smaller the figure is behind the horse. And he's wearing a Phrygian cap, which is a symbol of the other. This is a symbol of a barbarian. He's wearing pants, closed-toed shoes, all of the things that are symbols of other. And other here means foreigner. Under this horse, we also see a female figure, and she's quite classical in the way that her drape has fallen off one shoulder, and she's holding fruits. So she becomes this symbol of plenty. She could represent conquered lands or the bounty of the earth. We might even think of her as a personification of the earth, submitting to the emperor by holding up the underside of his foot. Looking at the central panel, there's an energy that's contrasted with the figure on the left, which we think is a general, or maybe even a high-level officer who's also presenting the emperor with a statue of victory. It's very shallow relief compared to that central scene, and we're seeing a very shortened architectural space. We can just barely make out these Corinthian columns behind him. Art historians assume that on the right side of the panel, a similar figure would have existed. Of course, it is now missing. Directly below the central scene, we see another chaotic and energetic scene. We see a winged female figure, another female personification of victory at the center. And if you look closely, you can see that she's holding a trophy. And then on the left, we see these figures that are bearded. One seems to carry a crown, another a container, also perhaps filled with spoils of war, with a lion as well. And on the right, we see other figures. These have been interpreted to be conquered people of the East bearing ivory tusks, a staff, a tiger, and an elephant. These are clearly meant to be symbols and figurations of distant peoples that have been conquered by our emperor. So there's a real sense of order being presented. These foreign people of the world have submitted to the Byzantine emperor, to this Roman emperor who resides on earth under God in heaven. So this piece is generally dated from the first half of the 6th century and is attributed to an imperial workshop and Constantinople. And this particular emperor is usually identified as Justinian.